Welcome to the Rock and Roll Show podcast. We're here to share the thrill of experiencing music of all kinds together with strangers and with friends, and to get to know our guests a little bit better through their musical experiences. I'm your host, Alex Gadd, and I do this because I love talking about music with people. Finding out what bands someone likes and how they got into music in the first place allows us to get to know and understand one another better. Today, we've got a great guest for you. Chris Eveland is our guest. Chris is a guitarist in the band SOS, the Abba Experience, and he spent his life playing music in his native Canada. He's performed with international acts such as Alana Miles and Colin James, and with bands like Sammy and the Boys and Rail City Route, and more, and we'll get into all of that today. I'm looking forward to a wide-ranging conversation, so stick around for my talk with Chris Eveland coming up right now. Hey, Chris, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Alex. I appreciate this, man.
Yeah, it's great to see you. And while I have a couple of guitars up, you have all the guitars up. Much respect there. I can't wait to talk about your guitar collection because when we first met and I saw that wall, I had many questions. But let's start at the beginning. And how did you first get into music? I assume it was as a kid.
Definitely, yeah. I was lucky and fortunate enough. My grandfather was a piano tuner, so every time I'd go visit the grandparents, walking in there, there's always a couple pianos kicking around. Some of them were half torn apart. He was working on some, but I'd always get the real treat of listening to him play at some point in the day. He'd be back in his little studio or even out in the living room, and he would just sit down, and it was just amazing. You know, to be at that age, at like 5 or 6, and hear that kind of stuff. It was pretty amazing. And the amazement didn't go away anytime I went over there, even into my early teens when I was getting into music myself. With the guitar, just hearing him perform some of these pieces is just it's always stuck with me. It's always wanted me to, it just inspired me to play. Before I had any inspiration, a guitar player's granddad was definitely the inspiration for me.
That's the best way to get into music of all. Now, did that mean that you started off playing piano?
Not at all. Like I would sit on his lap as a young kid and he'd show me how to hit the keys. And then anytime I went over there, I'd go to one of the pianos that was there and start playing the keys. He'd show me the basics, like what a chord was with the right hand, a 1-3-5 or whatever. He never really got too deep into theory, but definitely showed me chords and certain major and minor things. So I would just pick away at things and just do it by ear for a little while. Definitely interested in keyboard. I do enjoy playing now, but I definitely switched to guitar real quick after I heard the Van Halen stuff.
Okay, so Van Halen is what opened up guitar for you. Tell me a little bit more about that.
I didn't choose that. It was just a gift. It was 1986. It was the number one albums of the year. It was 5150. The first album was Sammy Hagar singing on it. And I had a Walkman, and that was the cassette I had. So that's all I had was that one cassette. I played it backwards, frontwards, upside down, everything. And right in the middle of the songs, when it gets to those solos, that's what hit me. I heard it. I didn't know what it was at the time, but when I found out it was a guitar, I had to do it. I had to learn more about it, and I was just hooked. I was hooked from that day, yeah.
And about how old were you then?
I would have been maybe 11 or 12, so still not knowing what instrument it was. And thank goodness it was Van Halen, because if you look at 1986 top 10 albums, it could have gone in a different direction, man. Like, they're all good stuff, and maybe I would have been at whatever, but I'm thankful that it was Van Halen because it's my whole music I've been playing now for, I don't know, 34 years or whatever it's been, but it's all because of the magic of Edward, right? Like, just hearing him play it.
Right on.
He's done this to millions of players, right? Like,
yeah, for sure. I went and saw them on the 1984 tour.
oh, come on.
And got to meet him. And I
Oh,
hung out backstage after the show at Madison Square Garden. Definitely one of the highlights of my teenage years.
oh man,
It was amazing.
I think I had a bootleg of the MSG 1984 tour. Didn't they have a Where's the Beef album from that show?
I don't know.
I think it's a bootleg.
Could be.
Yeah.
I don't have any bootlegs. So
Oh my gosh,
that
check
would
it out
be-
online. I think there's a live recording of the concert you were at, man.
I will. It was incredible. I got to sit right next to the stage, and when Michael Anthony was playing the bass solo, Eddie came over and he knew my aunt, so he said hi to us. And I had already met him before the show, so he said hi to me too. It was mind-boggling.
That's cool, man. Very cool.
Yeah, so I am with you. And when I first heard the first Van Halen record, I was 9, and I was just floored. I had no idea that rock and roll could sound like that.
Yeah.
And it changed my life too. So I'm right there with you.
Yeah, so for myself, having 5150, and then the next album that came out was OU 812, I was so excited for that.
Right.
I went to a buddy's house, and his older brother, because I would have been whatever 12 or 13 when OU 812 came out. His older brother had this picture of Eddie with David Lee Roth. I'm like, who's that guy? He's like, that's the singer. I'm like, that's not Sammy Hagar, right? Because I was young, I didn't know. And then
Right on. Yeah.
I said, they have another album come out. He goes, dude, they got 6 albums before 5150. I'm like, yeah. So then imagine being a huge fan of a band and then getting to bring home 6 albums in one day. Oh, as soon
I
as I
know. It
heard that,
must have been Christmas Day all over again.
goosebumps, man. And just like you, just like all of us, when we heard that Van Halen 1, we were like, game over, right?
Right. And it's funny because I grew up calling him Eddie, but you reference him as Edward, which is how his brother called, that's what his brother calls him. And that's what the people who knew him called him, either Ed or Edward.
Yeah, and at a concert, I jump in with the fans. I did Eddie, 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 but I read in a magazine years ago he doesn't like being called Eddie. He prefers Ed
Yeah,
or
I know.
Edward. So I've just always stuck with
Right.
Edward. Yeah.
No, that's right. And I'm just giving you props for calling it
Oh,
correctly. And
thank
I
you.
say it.
Yeah.
I fall back into habits that are 45 years old. But
Yeah, there you go.
uh,
There you
anyway, so Van Halen was your first band, it
Yeah,
sounds like.
for sure.
That was your band when you were a young teenager. And so how did you transition from your grandfather's a piano tuner, you plunk around on the piano, now you've fallen in love with Van Halen's music and rock and roll. How does that transition to playing guitar? How did you make that change?
Yeah, I think once I found out it was a guitar, and again, like back in that time, there was no internet, there was no way to actually. It was just eventually you got to the guitar magazines and you could flip through and see everything. But it was a summer. I decided I wanted to play guitar. I worked at corn detasseling in Southern Ontario, right? So I did that to save up, and then for my birthday when I was 14, I think 13 or 14, my parents got me guitar lessons. I still remember the birthday card said guitar lessons start on Monday at 4:30.
Oh,
Mike Claus was my teacher. He was absolutely incredible from St. Thomas. And I haven't stopped learning. Like I didn't just get to, okay, I can play an AC/DC riff, I'm done. I would look at
right.
other players and just continue learning. So I'm still studying. You know what it's like if you're playing, you open up a door,
I
you're like,
do.
okay, you get in there, it's comfortable. And then you find another door. You're like, oh man, when does this room end? But I love it. I love the process. I love the journey. And I'm so grateful to have music in my world for sure.
Do you have well, what was your first guitar?
Oh, this guy. Oh, I shouldn't say that. The first guitar I bought was a Sears. It was a white with a black pickguard. It looked like Jakey Lee's Strat, if you know that one.
Yeah. Yeah, I do.
Uh, yeah, so it looked like that. That was my first one. And then my first after that, I bought this Kramer. It's an
The
F1000.
black one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was purple. No, sorry, it was red. It was flip flop red. So it switched between red and purple. But then after a while, it started to turn pink, and that's when pink wasn't really cool in in the early '90s when everything changed with Seattle. So I painted it black, and then I put my son's handprints on it in silver. So that's my son when he's
Oh,
about 5 years old, sticking his hands on there. So when I went out and played, I could look down and see his hand. It was pretty cool.
that's a good touch, man. That's nice.
Thanks, dude. That's the one with all the hours on it for sure.
Do you still play that out?
I did with like the Gelatin Skeleton. That was like an '80s rock kind of genre band. So I brought that out. It's in the one video, the Warrant
Yeah,
cover that we did. It's got a
got it.
Floyd Rose. I can't be trusted with a Floyd Rose anymore, man. Like if I once I start doing it, and I can't do that in ABBA and all this stuff that I'm involved with today, but definitely still play it at home. I record with it because it
Oh, good.
feels like home. You know, you know the feeling, right? When you pick up that one guitar, it's like, oh man, there it is.
I do. I just took down my go-to guitar because I've been playing it again a lot more, so it's not
Which
up on
one
the
is it?
wall anymore.
Which one are you playing?
It's another Telecaster. I have an American Telecaster from 1999
Okay.
that I modded and I put a Gibson Burstbucker in the neck pickup and had
Oh,
to
cool.
reroute it and all that.
Yeah,
But it sounds great.
I bet it does.
It does everything. Like I could just take that to a gig and bring a backup guitar and use that for the whole night.
Right?
Gives me everything. I love it. And I just got this blue telly, I don't know,
That's
a couple
beautiful. I
months
can
ago.
see. Yeah, it looks good.
Yeah, it's
Nice color.
gorgeous with a blue sparkle. Yeah.
Oh,
So
cool.
yeah, it's really nice. That's the Ultra. But yeah, I'm in love with Telecasters as much as I love the Les Paul, and I have a couple Strats, but it's really the Telecaster is I've come back to simplicity and straight ahead
Yeah,
elegance. Now you have a bunch of guitars that I'd love to get into, but first I just want to ask a couple other questions of getting along the way. You started playing guitar when you're 13, it sounds like about. Is that right?
that's right. Yeah.
So you took lessons. When was the first time you played in front of other people?
I would say very quickly, maybe 15 or 16. I was in my second or third year of high school, so they had the co-op program, and I was lucky enough to get into a music studio for my co-op placement. And there was a guy in there recording, Dan Rivard, and he heard me noodling. He was about 10 years my senior, right? So he was probably 24, 25. And he heard me noodling in there. He goes, "Hey, do you want to take a crack at a solo on one of my songs?" I was like, "Are you kidding?" Like, here I am just winding cassette tapes and doing whatever I was doing there. And I got super
Right.
excited, but it ended up, he was happy with it. And it was a cool experience for me. But then he wanted to form something together. We got along great. So I think it was a Chernobyl fundraiser or something like that. It would have been in 91 or 90, somewhere around there. So only
Wow.
about 3 years of playing, but it was 3 years of like a lot of playing, like I asked a guy once, I said, "Oh dude, like some of those licks you did, like crazy. How many years have you been playing?" And he said, "It's not how many years, it's how many hours."
Yeah,
And that's
that's
the
true.
cool, right? Because someone could be playing for 5 years, but if you're playing every single day, big
Yep,
difference. And this thing,
totally.
this guy, wherever it is, that was my best
Yeah.
friend, and I spent a lot of time with that guitar. So 3 years, but I mean 3 years of playing a lot. So that was my first gig.
Your first gig was a Chernobyl benefit concert, essentially?
Yeah, yeah,
Wow,
yeah,
that's amazing.
yeah. It was just, man, we did. It was funny. My mom said something to me at the end of it. I can't remember. We played Freebird, but at the end of Freebird, they get a little steam to blow off. So, but we did it
Yeah.
acoustically. It wasn't electric. It was an acoustic unplugged kind of thing. And my mom said something to me funny at the end. It was like, "Oh, you had to ramp it up or speed it up at the end." And I'm like, "Well, no, that's the actual song. We weren't doing that, you know." But it was cool.
Yeah, right on. I think that's amazing. First band?
Oh, for sure. First band, yeah. And then the next one, we did a talent show at a high school, and there was a bar owner that came in from Eddie's in St. Thomas. And some of the big names that would come through would play, you know. And he goes, "Hey,
Mhm.
guys, do you want to come play at the bar sometime?" And we said, "Absolutely." So we did one gig there. And then my third gig live ever was opening up for Heron Scarum out of Toronto, coming in. So it was just like, what is happening? Like, I went from loving the guitar to recording a solo for this guy, playing at it was a small arena, for the Chernobyl
Yeah,
benefit.
an arena.
Well, like, I mean, like 1,000 to 2,000 small town arena. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. That's still amazing. I've played in bars for 100 people. Like,
Right? Yeah. It
that's
wasn't a
incredible.
backyard party or someone's garage. It was just,
Right,
here you go, man.
right.
And I've been pretty lucky along the way to surround myself with really decent people and musicians, and the gigs have been amazing. I've been pretty lucky.
Oh, you know what? I was just talking about this with someone yesterday. Luck is really just lots of preparation and being a good person, and those things come together and form luck. But it's really just the fact that you attract that kind of stuff, I believe, especially when you're playing music.
Well, thanks.
Because, I've dealt with it. I'm sure you have too. There's so many headaches when you try to get together with people to play music.
Oh, and that's like, I just moved. I agree with you, and thanks for saying that. I just moved here recently to the Brockville area, and someone said, "Man, you jumped into a few like really cool bands right out of the gate. How did you do? How did you land these shows?" And I'm like, "It's not always about the level of musicianship, man. If you can get along with someone, if you can have a chat, if you can light a barbecue and go for a half-hour drive and still enjoy the conversation with that person, it's just as important as the musicianship." Because you could pick the most
Right.
talented person or the most whatever, but if you can't get along with them or travel with them on the road, who wants to be involved with that anymore, right? Like,
Totally agree.
yeah.
Totally agree. What was the first show you ever saw? What was your first live concert?
Oh man. I'm gonna say it was in London, Ontario. It was Alice Cooper on the Trash Tour with Great White, and I think it was just the two of them. And if it wasn't that one, then it was Winger, Slaughter, and Kiss in the Hot and Shade tour. So I'd have to go back and see what year they were touring, but I saw Kiss.
Right.
Yeah. So they were really close together too. So it was one or the other, but I think it was Alice Cooper and Great White first.
Wow, that's a good both of those shows are classic 80s hard rock. Perfect.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah. Now,
No, I was to say the third one was Van Halen at Molson Park in Barrie, and that was
oh,
game.
that's good. So you got to see your favorite band.
Oh, I saw Van multiple times. Yeah, Van Halen. Not as my first concert, but I saw Van Halen probably close to
Right.
16 times. Yeah, yeah,
Woo.
yeah.
Yeah, I've only seen him 4 or 5 times, and I saw him once in Montreal. I
Oh,
used to
cool.
go to college in Vermont, in Northern Vermont, and so we would go up to Montreal sometimes for concerts.
Yeah, yeah,
And I
cool.
saw Van Halen there, and, yeah, 1990 probably on the whatever the album with Right Now was.
For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, yeah.
Yeah, for
That was my
Unlawful
first
Carnal
tour with
Knowledge.
them, was that.
8 yeah, 91, I guess that was. So, hard rock, rock and roll, what do you do as an adult? Do you have a full-time job?
I do, yeah. So, I was at Ford Motor Company. I built cars for Ford for 21 years, 22 years, and then, after, I met my current wife here, it was a long travel to see each other. We decided we wanted to be together as much as possible, so I left that job after 21, 22 years. I teach guitar now, but I'm also in real estate. I'm a realtor with my wife, we're a team.
Nice.
But having that, allows the freedom because we have people that can cover us. I can go out on tour now where when you're in
Mhm.
a factory gig 7 days a week, it's very difficult to say,
Right.
"Hey, can I have another 2 weeks off to go travel with my band?" You know? That gets
Right,
old.
yeah, that you could do that once maybe.
Yeah, and I think I did once with Ford. It was no pay or anything, but again, the kids
Yeah,
were really young then too, right? But they're all in their early 20s now. So it's
that's good.
if dad's on tour, they don't even notice anymore, so
Right, at least they're still around, that's kinda nice.
yeah, absolutely.
Good. So what does a tour for you look like? You're out on tour mostly with your band, the Abba Experience, the SOS band? Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah, that's the one that's touring the most. I did a tour last year with the Skeleton guys. We went over to the UK and we did 4 or 5 shows out there, I think. But now North America for SOS, the Abba Experience, we just did the Maritimes of the East Coast of Canada. We did
Mhm.
upstate New York, just a string of those. Then we have British Columbia. The West Coast is coming up, and Pennsylvania, some more stuff in the States. So because it's a 10-piece band, and then we have a sound man, and my wife comes along too. She helps us out with merch and organizing the hotels and everything. So there's about 12, 13 of us that go on the road. So a lot of them still, Monday to Friday day jobs. So it's not like they can
Yeah.
take off forever. But I'm telling you, these shows we've had 30 some odd sold out in a row. Like, it would be nice to go on a long tour of this because the people keep showing up. They love the music of ABBA. They're right from song one, they're jumping in. I feel we represent it really, really well. We all have a good time up there. Everybody gets along. Everybody's friendly. It's a really positive vibe and a really positive experience when you see the show.
Yeah, I saw a video recently of you down on the barricades soloing. Was that during an ABBA show, one of your ABBA Experience shows?
Yeah, man. And that was at the University of Guelph. So weird because when we
Mhm.
showed up, we set up, it was in a field, it was frosh week. And we thought, oh, it's going to get crazy. We got there. There was nobody there. There was 20 people there. There was a few bands playing throughout the day. And we were like, okay, it's filling up. Like there may be 100 people or 200 people. So we went to the green room. Everybody changed. And I'm talking a half hour, man, like 40 minutes tops. Everyone's doing their change. We do our thing, hands in, say, here we go. We walk out and there's thousands of kids in that field. We're like, what is going on? And I didn't think when we got the call to play at the university, I'm like, did they want to have a like you just I don't know. Maybe we get there and it was unbelievable. If you saw that video, they were just bopping and bouncing and the whole night was that. It was probably one of the coolest gigs we've done as far as crowd interaction. That was a really, really special show. Yeah. In Guelph, Ontario.
Yeah, I'll be cutting a version of that
Oh,
into
cool.
this show so that
Cool.
people can see it on YouTube.
Yeah.
Tell me how a rock and roll guitarist fits into an ABBA tribute or covered band.
Yeah, it doesn't. It doesn't. If you play it out with bands, and I see in the back there you got Pearl Jam and the Stones, so the guitar is driving most of the songs.
Correct.
we have two keyboard players in ABBA, you know? So most of the
Yeah.
songs start with keyboard. The guitar is just like here and there. It's just little sprinkles. It's fill. There's some songs that the chords are full, but it's not like if you're in an Ozzy tribute and your cable comes unplugged, people are going to know. You know, I could
Right.
roll off sometimes in the ABBA show, certain parts of the ABBA show, I could roll off the guitar and
Yeah.
it's not going to change the sonic too much. Our sound man
Yeah.
would say different. He'd say, no, no, keep, but I just mean it's not that in the front with
It doesn't change the structure of the song that much.
that's right. And the
Yeah.
one guy, Joel, when I was playing in a duo with Joel, and I asked him, I said, it's going to sound weird, man, but like, do you want to be part of an ABBA tribute? And he's like, well, I don't know. I don't know, maybe. And I think I remember telling him, I said, man, it flexes a different muscle that you're not used to, right? Just like my students, if they're like diehard Metallica fans, I tell them to learn country, I tell them to learn jazz. Just a couple
Right.
licks. Don't get too deep into it, but just learn some and bring it back. Just like my blues, I have huge Stevie Ray Vaughan fans. I'm like, go learn a Metallica song.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like learn it all, right? Become better players.
Right.
And everybody that joined the band, I think we all said, holy, like the songwriting in ABBA, the transitions, the chords, the modulations. Some of these songs are really, really, really well written. They're brilliant. Like it's not just a one
Those
four
guys were great writers. Yeah. Those guys, great writers.
and harmonies, man. Like
Yeah.
just the layers and layers of harmonies. And this band has, I think there's 10 of us on stage, but I think there's 8 live vocal mics. So that tells you that, and we don't play the tracks. There's nothing in the back. It's all us. And
That's good.
we spent a lot of time getting the sound right, like dialing everything in and trying to, represent the sound of ABBA because that's when I first got the call. You guys said, "Do you want to be part of an ABBA tribute?" I said no, but not out of a lack of interest. It was like if you're going to be in that tribute, you have to have the right singers, you have to have the right level of musicianship.
Right.
It's like if you get a call for a Queen tribute, I'm like, can I hear the singer for a bit first? Right?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. You don't want to go out with someone honking away.
could be a smoking band, but if the
Yeah.
singer's not, well, nobody's Freddie, but if the singer's not, at that, and so
Close.
yeah, then
They got to be close. Yeah.
yeah, and I showed up to ABBA at the audition, and man, the female singers were like, they were so tight and locked in. I'm like, this is really good stuff.
So you do find ways to express yourself on the guitar though during those shows, clearly.
100%. Yeah, I was just joking, and they let me fly in "Does Your Mother Know?" And that's probably the clip you
Yeah.
saw in Guelph. So they give me a little solo section, so I get to bring in a little bit of rock guitar there. And there are some songs by ABBA like "Rock Me" and "Ring Ring." We just had Darren Smith from speaking of J.T. Lee and the guitar, so the singer of J.T. Lee's band Red Dragon Cartel. Darren came up and joined us on stage for a song. We played "Ring Ring." It's got kind of a rock feel to it, so that was really cool.
Yeah.
Uh,
Good.
yeah, it was cool.
That is cool. Let's also talk about your other bands because you're not just in the SOS Abbott experience. Tell us who else you're playing with these days.
Sure. So the longest time I've been playing with someone is probably my good buddy John Millis. Just an acoustic duo. I think we started 17, 18 years ago. It could be longer. I'd have to check but we played covers and we played out quite a bit, and it was so easy with John. We never rehearsed. He just kind of like that guy. You just give him a guitar and he'll sit there. Someone will say Bob Dylan, boom, he'll play 3 in a row. He'll play Cat Stevens. He's got it down. Like I don't know how he retains the lyrics. I don't know but he would just do that. And we eventually started writing some songs, but we never recorded them. But just recently, I would say the last couple of years, we said, let's get some written or finish them up and record them.
Right.
So we did, and we just put it under name Rail City Route. We're from St. Thomas, the both of us. So it's the Rail City capital, or it was the Rail City capital of Canada.
All right.
So we just called it the Rail City Route. We're putting our stuff out now. We're just starting to get it out. It's getting some good traction. It's getting some streams. And it's just a place for us to be like, there it is, instead of, remember that song?
Yeah.
Now it's somewhere we can go. And it's always fun writing with John. He's the most humble guy, and it's easy to work with him. And I love performing with him. And so, yes, we got that going on.
That's great. Anything else?
Yeah, Sammy and the Boys. That's with so John Wilberforce. I play in a duo with him called Fire, but and he's in the ABBA band. But we have John Wilberforce, Randy Orr, who's an incredible musician in the area here and has a studio. He's a magician in the studio, and then Samantha Ross, very talented singer out front. And it's one of the coolest bands as far as it's called like the decades of dance, right? So it's from the 60s all the way till last month of the biggest hits. So we do Aretha
Yeah.
Franklin all the way to Pink, you name it, like all the bands, whatever the biggest hits were, we form that and deliver that. And it's a really, really fun band. We don't play as often as I like because we're all in different projects. And for John and I, SOS, like ABBA takes precedence with the bookings because there's a lot, having 10 people
Sure.
involved. The logistics are tough, but that's a really fun band too. It's always a good time.
All right. That's three solid bands. That must keep you pretty busy. And then you teach guitar.
Yes, yeah.
And is teaching only in person or do you teach over the internet as well?
During COVID, right? Like that was huge online. So I hooked up with the Canada Music Academy and they farmed out. They did a lot of the promo and the ads and stuff. So I started getting students from the West Coast, the East Coast, all over Canada, which was really
Mhm.
cool. And I've kept some of those, but I definitely do in person here in my studio, but I do online as well. And now I have some of my students that have been with me for a while. They're teaching other students now. So they'll come into the home studio if I've got stuff. So they've progressed to a level where they can teach some of the younger ones. And it's really cool. It's just starting to grow.
Yes, that's amazing. Is there a place people can find you if they need a guitar lesson and want to study with you over the internet?
Yeah, absolutely. Chris Eveland Music on Facebook is the best way. Just reach out and we
Great.
can we can have a chat and see where you're at. I love taking players that like have been playing for a while, but they've just been in a plateau for a while. Because we all get to those plateaus, right? Yeah, we all get there, and I just love sharing. I don't even say teaching anymore. It's like I share and just opening up a door for someone. You see the light bulb go off on them, and then they walk in, and then they do all the journey part of it themselves.
Right.
Just because I spent a lot of time probably wasted time not doing it properly, like just trying to find out if, oh my gosh, is that it? And just switching the hand or doing whatever. So now just saving people months or years or just saving them
Right.
time on little changes is pretty cool.
That sounds great. I may be calling.
Yeah, man.
Now, one of the things that you mentioned a couple of times is that there are singers in your bands. Are you one of the singers in the ABBA band or in your duo Root City?
Yeah, with Rail City Root, I sing harmony, and in the duo, I sing in Sammy and the Boys. ABBA, no. I let the singers, the pubs and the bands, I definitely don't mind throwing in some background. But if you heard like some of the people in that band sing, they're pretty. I'll leave that.
Roger that.
I like to sing with the strings, man. I'm more of a guitar player, and I'll do harmonies if need be or whatever. But those guys are really really strong singers. They can pick out harmonies super super quick. So it's best leaving them do that stuff. And yeah.
Got it. How about songwriting? You mentioned that you started doing with Rail City Root, you started doing your own songs. Do you write lyrics? Do you write music? What part do you play in the creation of original music?
Yeah, so I do all of that. And I do have my own original music that's out there, but with Rail City Root, John and I usually, I think mostly like he'll come up with a verse, and we'll work on the. I like doing the choruses as far as the music goes, and intros and endings are. I love adding little spins to things with that. But I would say John and I
Nice.
were like 50-50 on everything there. But when I first moved here, and when I started teaching, I wanted to put out some kind of like instrumental just because I was new to the area. I was 5 hours away from where I grew up. Just wanted something that people could listen to and say, okay, either I like his playing, I don't like it, or I'm drawn to it, or whatever. So I was lucky enough to have Gary Lalonde from Honeymoon Suite play bass, and then Forrest Williams from Big Wreck, if you know those cats with Ian Thornley. He played the drums on it, and I just made this little instrumental piece. We were not in the same room. They just recorded and submitted. When I
Sure.
heard the bass and drums together, I was just like, man, I don't even want to add guitar. It was so musical. Like Forrest is like, you can tell his influences are Bonham, and Gary's such a melodic bass player too. but I added some guitar on it, and I made sure it wasn't, 10,000 notes in a measure. I didn't want to do that. So I made it
Right.
more of like a Satriani vibe where, when Satch does something and he sings the melody on the guitar. So I made it
Yes.
more like that. It was a nice slow 92 BPM, just a nice kind of medium thing. And that's what started it. I recorded that, let it out, and it picked up some students and I got some traction with it. It got a few streams online, and then just started doing some of my own with vocals too. And John sang Moment in Time. And yeah, it's just been a great process, man. Still doing it.
And can we find that music under your name on Apple Music or on Spotify?
Yeah, Apple, Spotify, all the streaming services, just Chris Eveland will find my
Yep.
originals. And then Rail City Route with a duo. The songs are on there. Um, And then there is the Aaron Walpool. It's out there too on streaming, even though that was a long time ago. Aaron's a guy I played
Okay.
with that went on to Canadian Idol and got third place. And he's a heck of a
Wow.
singer, super talented. And that album's one of my favorite. I mean, Harry Hess recorded it. There's a couple Harem Scarum songs on there. These Eyes by Burton Cummings is on there, and then some rock stuff
Right.
too. So it's a great album if people want to check it out.
That's cool. Let's take a detour because you've mentioned a number of Canadian rock stars and rock artists. Let's talk about Canadian rock and roll. Most of my audience is not in Canada, and
Okay.
I don't think that as many American and British rock fans know as much about Canadian rock as they should. Who are some of your favorite Canadian rock bands?
Harem Scarum. Absolutely.
Okay, Harum Scarum. All right.
Huge, huge. Like, just if you're into melodic rock, incredible guitar playing, incredible vocals, incredible songwriting, you have to check them out. And they didn't put out the same album 12 times or 14 times. They kind of took turns, right? Like, so they shifted a bit, they
Yeah.
evolved. People say evolve. I don't know if it's evolving. It just changed a direction. Their songwriting was changing.
Experimenting. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, some people get, oh, they took too much of a turn for whatever band. But I've really thoroughly enjoyed following them in their career. Triumph was huge for me early on.
Huge for me too.
Yeah, like Thunder Seven, Rick Emmett, like, just he's one of those guys, incredible vocals, incredible guitar player. Not fair, right? But
Yeah.
super
Right.
talented. I love those guys. Still, those early albums, I'll put them on. I love it.
Mhm.
Rush is a
Yeah,
big.
so right, Rush broke through. So Rush to me and Brian Adams were the two Canadian bands that stopped becoming Canadian bands for Americans and just became rock bands, right?
Okay.
All most Americans know Rush, most Americans know Brian Adams. Very few Americans know Harum Scarum, The Tragically Hip, Max Webster,
Yeah.
or they might know a singer like Alana Miles, but not know she's Canadian or, whatever. So that's why I'm trying to get it out there because for me, it was the Tragically Hip. I lived in Burlington, Vermont for 8 years
Okay.
and they broke through when I was up there. They came out. I mean, they were starting. And the first place they seemed to break in America was Detroit, but really it was also in Burlington, Vermont, much smaller town. And I got to meet them when they played on a ferry in the middle of Lake Champlain for the radio station that I worked at's
Okay.
Blues Cruise. And so this was when Road Apples came out, their third record, and blew me away. And I said, how come I've never heard of this incredible band?
Yeah.
And it's because they never broke in America.
Yeah. Yeah, they're just from, like, I'm 45 minutes east of Kingston, and that's their hometown
Yeah.
there. And
Yeah. Yeah.
the Hip, I went to see them live a bunch of times, and they just have that during those college years and everything. Everyone was just into the Hip, and they were kind of special to a lot of Canadians, right? I think a lot of us that had
Yeah.
been playing for a while before they came out didn't really have an influence on us at all as players. There's a respect there. But yeah, definitely had, like, Canadians were fully supportive and definitely enjoyed them. They weren't huge
Yeah.
on my list, but definitely there's a couple songs on there that were, you know, it's a time machine. When I hear them, I go back, and it's some cool stuff.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there's so many others too.
Are you aware of Big Wreck at all and Ian Thornley?
I've heard the name Big Wreck. I've never heard Ian Thornley's name. I hate to say it, but that's why I do this podcast so I can learn about new music that I don't know about.
Well, you're welcome. Check them out the next month. Well, I know it's the holidays and stuff, but whenever you have time, bud, Ian
I
Thornley,
have time.
he is a monster player. monster. And
Great.
he's one of those guys when you keep seeing him, he's one of the few that like even I'll talk about Van Halen like every album, but then after a while, Ed kind of stayed. You know, he was just it didn't you didn't hear that it was always Ed, which was from when I hear Thornley, you just hear his progression. Like that guy's not stopping. He hasn't stopped playing or practicing or whatever's going on there. But it's like, what's that? Every album, you're like, what's that now? What's this? He is speaking in
Right.
all of the languages on guitar. He's phenomenal. But
Yeah, and I forgot to mention before, Neil Young and Joni Mitchell obviously were great Canadian early troubadours who came down and made their place in America and kind of left behind the Canadian thing and just became international rock stars.
yeah. And Brian Adams, you brought him up. If you listen to his Unplugged album, I think Keith Scott, I think is his lead guitar player. Listen to some of the playing on that acoustic album. Keith is he's a killer player, man. Like he's extremely melodic.
Canadian rock and roll is great music. Honeymoon Suite, are they? I assume they're Canadian.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, Niagara Falls. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I loved Honeymoon Suite.
Oh yeah,
I know you cover some of their you do some covers of their solos on some of your videos.
we do. And Gary lives in town, the bass player, and he helps us out with all
Yeah,
the
you mentioned
recording.
him.
He's
Yeah.
just a sweetheart, man. He's one of the nicest guys I've met in the business is Gary, and they're still out touring.
Yeah, they're amazing. I mean, great. They wrote great rock and roll songs. They were of the time, 80s rock and roll. They nailed it. They had it down pat.
Perfect sound. They recorded with Don Landy, not Don Landy,
Yeah.
sorry, Ted
Well, Don
Templeman.
Landry was, yeah, Ted Templeman from
Yeah, it
Van
was the other
Halen.
one I was thinking of. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, look, let's talk about a couple other quick things. First, let's get back to your guitars. You have a number of them up on the wall. Do you have more than is what's up on the wall?
Yes. Yeah. Few, a few.
I have a couple over there that way, but not that many.
Yeah, and it hasn't always been like that. Like I just found, when your guitar's in a case sometimes, like I remember when my kids were younger and I felt like playing guitar, and if it was in the case and slid under the bed or in the closet behind a bunch of stuff, even that 2 minutes was like, ah man, I'm not gonna do it. So it started with just having a guitar like this, and then I could pick it up and play it. It's out. It wants to be played. Or if I'm
Yeah.
coming in here to do paperwork and I see one, I'm like, oh man, maybe it's right there. It's super easy, right?
Yes.
But now it's more of a depends on what gig I do, right? Like if it's a rock pop, then there's certain guitars that get packed up. If it's a heavier set, then there's other guitars that get done. Abba has
Right.
its own, right? Like that Star guitar. That's a student of mine
Yes.
built that. Um,
For you.
yeah, like he just heard like one of my students was leaving, and he just heard a conversation about this Star guitar. I had reached out to a couple of custom builders, and they saw all the points on it, and they said, "No, man, no, we don't want to do it," which is cool. But my student, he's 75. He goes, "I can build you that if you want," because he saw it on my computer monitor. I'm like, "That's okay, man. Like, thanks." He goes, "No, I build guitars. I'll bring you a couple next week and see what you think." And he brought in a few guitars. I was playing them. I'm like, hey man, these are pretty good. I swear he went home, he did his thing or whatever, and he took like a salt and pepper shaker, he put in the glitter from nail polish,
Yeah.
and it's all sprinkly, like the glittery chrome in that. And that's
Yeah.
Abba's Waterloo guitar
Okay.
from their
Love
first.
it.
Yeah. So then he said, here you go. So now when I bring that to an Abba show, it works out really, really well. The fans see it and they, you know,
They can
people
associate it with the band.
yeah, exactly. So that was a pretty
Nice.
cool gift. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite guitar today?
Ah, man, that's like saying, do you have a favorite kid, right? Like they're all your favorite, but
Yeah, most people have an answer that they just don't want to admit to.
this one's got a story here. It's a John Petrucci, Ernie Ball Music Man, and I used to have that guitar.
Oh,
It
those
was
are
given,
nice.
yeah, man, like it plays. You were talking about your telly saying it does everything. That's my guitar that
Yeah.
does everything. But I
Yeah.
had that guitar and I had to get rid of it years ago. And it's something that's always kind of bothered me. And my wife found the exact same one, the JP6 from that time, the Mystic Dream. It's not the exact guitar, but it's the exact model and everything. And then she gifted that with me, and it was just the most special
Oh,
gift ever.
and that told you that you picked the right partner.
Yes, yeah, like all the other guys, like, "Oh, I can't tell my wife." If I came home and said, "Honey, I bought another guitar," she's like, "What color is it? Is it a Tele
Right.
or, what's the bridge?" Like, she's kind of, uh
Right.
she's very supportive about it,
She's
she knows.
supportive. Right.
Very much so,
Yeah,
yeah.
I have a one in, one out policy right now.
Yeah. My buddy John said he used to do like a cardboard box, like he'll come pick up your empty boxes, right, and get rid of them kind of thing.
Yes.
And I got a funny
It's
story.
funny.
You probably can't see it, but I have a Sinister Gates, his signature Schecter, and
Yeah.
I don't know if I can, that guy right there.
Yeah. Yep.
And that was a beautiful gift I received from a student's parents. They came and they wanted to gift that to me for helping their son just be more sociable and get into music, and it was a beautiful thing, man.
Yeah.
And I really appreciated it. I was grateful, but then I was all of a sudden I was like, oh, my wife's gonna come home, see an extra guitar, and say, "Where'd that come from?" And I say, "Oh, it's a gift." And she'd be like, "I don't know, right?" But
I should try that. I got a gift. Someone gave me a guitar.
yeah,
By the way, any guitar companies, if you want to start sponsoring this podcast, please, I have 2 spaces I'm happy to give up to your guitars. Speaking of which, Godin guitars, talk to me.
yeah. I lucky with that. And that again, when I went to see Honeymoon Suite in Belleville, I went back and Gary brought my wife and I backstage, so we got to meet the other guys because I know Gary well, but I hadn't met the guys. And Derry Graham,
Sure.
there, he's got his signature tread guitar, which is Godin, and it plays great. It looks great. It sounded great all night. So I mentioned to Gary possibly picking one of those up, and he's like, "Oh, hey, he's got a contact info, or he's got a guy there, or whatever." So I reached out to Simon Godin, and he sent me over to Fred DeSanto, who's the artist rep on the East Coast, and I invited those guys out to one of our shows in Quebec. Yeah, I had a couple Godins on stage there, and just chatted with them afterwards. And I said, "Is there any possible way, we can do anything?" And they said, "Yeah." So there's an artist endorsement deal there, which is really cool. And that's this white one. It's a Montreal premiere. And for me, it's
Beautiful.
cool. It's built in Canada. The wood's from Canada. Everything's built in Quebec here, right? So there's nothing from China or anywhere else. It's just Canadian made through and through.
Mhm.
And when I
Mhm.
played it just, that's the first guitar I've ever ordered without playing one. I've always played them and whatever, but this one just came in the mail. I played it. I fell in love with it. And if you look at the last 10 shows with Abba, like I have that one on the majority of the time. It's perfect, man. The
Nice.
pickups are great. Action's awesome. This is a go down here, Fifth Avenue. Yeah, great company, man.
Nice.
Excellent company.
Yeah. They seem like a great company. I'd love to get one of their guitars one day.
Yeah, yeah, man.
Hint,
Definitely
hint.
try them. They're amazing.
Godin.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. A couple of just general questions about your experience with music. What's the most memorable concert you've ever seen?
Sitting on my granddad's lap, probably for live performance. But
Good answer. Home
yeah,
run.
yeah, for
Home
sure.
run answer.
Yeah.
If someone came to you today and said, I want to hear some new rock and roll music, tell me someone to listen to, who would be the band you would recommend to them?
And it has to be newer.
I mean, yeah, it would be, yeah. Like, I know all music up to 2015, but I'm looking for new music.
Dirty Honey.
Dirty Honey. I love Dirty Honey. Great call.
I saw them open up
Dig
for
that band.
Wolfgang. And I was like, as much
Yeah.
as I loved Wolfie, and everything all about him, I'll always support that stuff. But Dirty Honey came out and just kicked. Like they were great, man.
Yeah.
So
They are
good.
great, man.
Yeah.
Good band. I'd like to hear more from them. They released that one first EP and then they had an album and that was it. I haven't heard more. I want more.
Someone told me they went to Nashville and they might be releasing something in a country kind of flavor. I don't know if that's true or has substance to it, but
Yeah, as long as it sounds like cool country rock, I'm in. But let's
yeah,
hear it before we
yeah.
judge. I'm in. Who's the band that's still performing that you've never seen that you'd most like to see?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I've seen everyone that I've wanted to see. I was just the other day, I thought Pantera because I've never seen Zach Wild play. I didn't see him with Ozzy and I've never seen Black Label. So I think to see
Yeah,
Pantera with Zach would be a cool thing. Yeah, like, is Queen still going around with that singer?
they are with Adam Lambert every once in a while, but not regularly.
I would still go see that just as something,
Sure.
just to see Brian May
Yeah, right
play
on.
and just to, yeah, probably those two.
Yeah. And as a performer, if you were could open for any band in the world at any time in history, who's the band you would open for?
Oh, man. These are good questions, bud. They're really good.
Thanks.
I don't know because some of my favorite bands like Dream Theater, there's no way I'd ever want to open for those guys. They're just too
Well,
good.
right. Isn't that that's why it's an interesting question because like as in my limited experience and skills, I wouldn't open for Dream Theater either, even though they're amazing and I love them because it would just be so discordant with what their audience was expecting. It wouldn't work.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I'm going to say Wolfgang Van Halen, just because I would feel confident
Great.
up there. I'd feel great. And then there's the son of my hero that gets to go on Abba.
Yeah.
I'd say Wolfie for sure.
I want Wolf to have the biggest career and play. I just want him to go on tour every year because I want
Yeah,
to see him every year. I will
keep
never
going,
get
but
tired.
yeah, same.
He's so good. So good.
So talented.
Is there a venue in the world, a rock and roll venue that you would most like to go see a show at?
Royal Albert Hall. I saw that last year, but I didn't walk inside. Or Wembley, probably one of those two.
Yeah. Well, that's
Yeah.
good answers. Do you go to London a lot?
No, last year, my mom was born there. But
Okay.
last year was my first time there, first time touring. But now the ABBA tribute's talking about getting over there and doing a little bit of the UK
Oh,
and
good.
hopefully Europe. Yeah, so hopefully to get back. But love the venues, lots of live music there. It was really cool.
Oh, that's really good. So where are you playing next?
Tonight, I'm in Smiths Falls, Ontario, with my buddy John Wilberforce, just as a duo called Fire. It's just an acoustic duo.
Okay.
And then tomorrow night is our last show of the year with ABBA, and it's at the Olympia Theater in Montreal. Stunning theater. I
Oh,
think
wow.
it's gorgeous there, man. The stage lights. I
I've
think
been
it's,
there.
oh, cool. Oh, of course, yeah. You were in Northern Vermont, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's tomorrow night. I think 1,400 seats or 1,500 seats, something like that.
Do you have dates booked in the new year?
So as far as gigs, like we have a Google Calendar, and they just keep we get these emails every other day. So 2025 is booking up quickly. January we usually take a little bit of a break, but then February we start off. We're doing something in Toronto. We have the Opera House coming up. I believe in February we're playing in Pennsylvania in Stroudsburg. I hope I said that right. There's a beautiful,
You did.
yeah,
Strasbourg. Yeah.
Stroudsburg. Yeah, we're playing there at some theater.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff coming up.
Oh, good. So we can find that all on the ABBA band's website?
Yeah, so sosband.ca or on Facebook, it's SOS the Abba Experience.
Excellent. Then I really only have one more question for you. And it's a question I'd like to ask all of my guests to wrap it up, which is what is it about playing and listening to rock and roll music that keeps you coming back, that you never get tired of? What is it that's most special about music to you?
The way it makes me feel, definitely, is the coolest part about soundcheck. If you've done soundcheck at a bar and there's some guy sitting at the edge of the bar doing nothing, and then you just start rocking on a chord and you see his foot start doing this or somebody's head start doing that. Nothing happened. They just heard something. It's like I tell my students, like, imagine watching a movie that didn't have music in it, right? Music, it just
Mhm.
the emotion. I love hearing music when something happens that's out of the norm. You're like, "Ooh, what was that?" I get so drawn and pull into it. So definitely the feeling, the connection. For me, it's the purest form of meditation when I'm practicing on my own. 45 minutes will go by and I don't even know it, and I'm just into it. So it's a very healthy release, very positive. It's everything, man. I don't know. I just love it.
You couldn't have said it better.
Oh,
That's
cool,
really
man.
well said.
Thanks.
Chris, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. And I can't wait to share this episode with all of my audience and make sure they get to know a little bit more about you and find you and your music out in the world.
Thanks so much, man. Appreciate you having me on and sharing people's live music and everything, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, Chris, it's great. Thanks so much. Have a great day, and we'll hear more from you. And I look forward to following your music from here.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
That's it for today's conversation. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back next Tuesday. And if you like what you heard today, we'd appreciate it if you would like and subscribe or follow to make sure you get notified about every new episode. And please tell your friends. Also, a reminder that we release a playlist for every episode, so look for the Rock and Roll Show podcast playlist on Spotify every week, featuring songs from the bands that we talked about on the show today. So check that out. Additionally, we want to know what you think, so please leave us a comment. We'll try to respond to them. We do love hearing from you. The Rock and Roll Show podcast is a World Highway Media production. I'm your host, Alex Gadman. Until next time, remember that life is short, so get those concert tickets.